What's going on, guys? Today we're discussing Jean support builds and testing the new Festering Desire against some of their popular weapons, as this is the most well-rounded 4-star weapon for my Jean build. I use Jean primarily for Anemo damage by spamming her elemental skill as well as for healing, and these builds will be focused on this as well. I've seen several videos on the Festering Desire. All of the videos I've seen focus on this weapon being best for characters like Albedo and Bennett. There's no doubt that this is a great sword for both of these characters. Albedo with his high elemental skill damage and extremely short skill cooldown, and Bennett with his insane elemental burst that demands nearly constant uptime because of its utility, and his second passive which grants a reduced cooldown on his skill while his burst is up. If either of these characters are a staple in your party, sure, you may want to give this sword to them. But in this video I want to focus on Jean because this is personally my favorite 4-star sword for a support build. If you didn't know, at level 80 in Refinement 5, this sword has 449 base attack, 41.9% energy recharge, and increases elemental skill damage by 32% and elemental skill crit rate by 12%. Now with max refinement on this sword, I wanted to share my thoughts and testing performed on this sword against two other popular choices, the Black Sword and the Flute. I'll be comparing builds using these three swords, DPS output, healing performance, and overall viability for a burst support and healer build. Because there isn't a best build for Jean, I plan to just present the results as well as the advantages and disadvantages of each of these builds. I thought I had my Jean build locked in before testing this sword, but have since revised my build slightly, and I'm enjoying the perks of this sword even more. Jean seems to not get a lot of love from content creators and tier lists because of her ability to flex into different roles and not being particularly amazing at any of them. Since Genshin released, Jean was my most wanted 5-star unit because I like her playstyle, and honestly, she's just my current waifu until Ganyu joins my party in a couple of weeks. Let's briefly talk about Jean's kit and what playstyle this sword works best for. Jean is an extremely versatile Anemo character with solid physical DPS, elemental skill and burst damage, the ability to proc swirl, and fairly potent heals. I personally think that she excels most in applying Anemo damage with her skill and burst, as well as healing, so my Jean build focuses on that, although I have run her as a physical carry in the past. All of Jean's talents scale off of her attack, including her damage and healing. Her burst also has a relatively high energy cost at 80, although her second passive replenishes 20% of this energy when her burst is up. This high energy cost, as well as her support role, requires some energy recharge to make sufficient use of her burst damage and healing. Jean's elemental skill, Gale Blade, does 409% damage at talent level 6 with only a 6-second cooldown, which results in a significant amount of damage, and therefore building crit for Jean makes sense where possible, without taking significantly away from her overall attack. All three of the builds we are testing utilize the 2-piece Veridescent Venerer set for the 15% Anemo damage bonus and 2-piece Gladiator set for the 18% attack buff. Because I'm using Jean primarily as an Anemo damage dealer and healer, both of these 2-piece sets work extremely well. The artifact main stats that I focus on are HP on the flower, attack on the feather, attack percent on the sands, Anemo damage on the goblet, and crit damage, crit rate, or attack percent on the circlet depending on what is needed. I use Jean as my primary healer in a team comp, but do not feel the need to stack any additional healing bonus main stats or artifact set bonuses, as her healing scales very well with her kit. I've also ran Jean with a 2-piece Gladiator and 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry set with a physical damage goblet, using her more as a physical sub-DPS for teams that focus on elemental damage. This build does good physical damage, but does limit the damage from her skill and burst. I do not recommend the 4-piece Gladiator set because Jean's charge attack does a considerable amount of damage at 220% for talent level 5. If you want more healing from Jean, you can swap out the 2-piece Veridescent Venerer set for a 2-piece Maiden set for the additional healing bonus. Additionally, if you want to get more burst damage out of Jean, you could swap the 2-piece Gladiator set for the 2-piece Noblesse set. With the Festering Desire passive that only increases elemental skill damage, this will increase the damage from her burst and even out her damage some, but will decrease the damage of Gale Blade, her normal attacks, and her overall healing potential. The 4-piece Veridescent Venerer, Noblesse Oblige, and Maiden sets all work on Jean as well. They're just for more specific uses, and we are focusing here on a rounded set for Gale Blade and burst damage as well as healing. I'm testing 3 weapons in this video as I feel that they are all around her best in slot 4-star weapons. The Black Sword from the Battle Pass, the Festering Desire from the Dragonspine update, and the Flute. The Black Sword is a crit rate substat, increases normal and charge attack damage by 20%, and regenerates 60% of attack as HP when attacks crit, which can occur every 5 seconds. The Festering Desire is an energy recharge substat and increases elemental skill damage by 32% and elemental skill crit rate by 12% at refinement rank 5. The Flute has an attack percent substat and can deal 100% attack damage every 5 normal or charge attack hits landed. I just want to briefly touch on 2 other swords that I think work well for Jean in a support role. The 5-star Skyward Blade is an excellent sword for its energy recharge, secondary stat, and high base attack. The passive on this sword, which increases damage, movement speed, and attack speed after using your burst, is nice, but because of the high energy cost and cooldown of her burst, I do not think that the passive works extremely well with Jean. The Sacrificial Sword is another really great sword for Jean because the passive allows for the cooldown on Gale Blade to be reset. However, this can only occur once every 30 seconds. Due to the short cooldown on her passive, I believe that she can do more damage and get more energy from the Festering Desire, but this is a great choice if you have it. Please keep in mind that the tests of each of these swords do not use the same artifacts. I do swap a single piece on the build with the Black Sword in order to make the best use of the crit rate substat on the sword, and therefore the test with the Black Sword is not 100% comparable, but we can still draw conclusions from the results. It feels pointless to test an unoptimized build, so I decided to switch the single artifact in this case. I did test this same artifact set with the Black Sword, but simply found slightly higher non-crit numbers with reduced crit damage. Because in general, we are building crit to occur more than 50% of the time, the crit build will win out in overall DPS with some artifact optimization. For each of these builds, we have attack percent on the Sands and Anemo damage bonus on the Goblet. For the Black Sword build, I'm using a crit damage circlet to make use of the crit rate substat and produce a more balanced build. With the other 2 builds, I'm using the same attack percent circlet. When we look at the stats of these builds, I'll explain why. All builds have an Anemo damage bonus of 53.7% and no energy recharge from artifact substats. The Black Sword build has a base attack of 1,428, crit rate of 53.5%, and crit damage of 128.7%. A total of 5 tests, which included a 5-hit normal combo, gave a total of 5,696 damage for the combo. The skill damage was 9,394 for a crit hit and 4,130 for a non-crit hit. The burst damage was 13,903 for a crit hit and 6,009 for a non-crit hit. The Festering Desire build has a base attack of 1,676, crit rate of 34.6%, and crit damage of 94%. I was trying to roll artifact substats on this build that allowed me to build for crit on her elemental skill. The crit rate on this build is lower than suggested, at 40% minimum. However, with the passive on the Festering Desire, the crit rate for her elemental skill is increased to about 47%. A total of 5 tests, which included a 5-hit normal combo, gave a total of 4,648 damage for the combo. The skill damage was 11,453 for a crit hit and 5,904 for a non-crit hit. The burst damage was 13,971 for a crit hit and 7,129 for a non-crit hit. The Flute build has a base attack of 1,924, crit rate of 34.6%, and crit damage of 94%. This build is not meant to be a crit build. Because crit rate is below 40%, I just happen to roll decent substats on my artifacts. A total of 5 tests, which included a 5-hit normal combo, gave a total of 5,645 damage for the combo. The skill damage was 10,950 for a crit hit and 5,644 for a non-crit hit. The burst damage was 15,484 for a crit hit and 8,188 for a non-crit hit. In summary, the Black Sword had the highest normal attack combo damage of the 3. This will scale even harder as crit rate and crit damage are optimized sum from the build that I use in this video. The Festering Desire had the highest elemental skill damage for both crit and non-crit hits. If we factor in the crit rate of each build, the Festering Desire will still have the highest average elemental skill damage of the 3 builds. The Flute had the highest elemental burst damage for crit and non-crit hits and still wins out on average when factoring in the crit rate of the 3 builds. Now let's look at other aspects of these builds. The Flute provides the highest healing per normal attack and per burst because this build gives Jean the highest overall attack stat and healing scales with Jean's attack. However, we have not discussed her burst uptime, as obviously this is critical as her role as a healer and a burst damage dealer. Without any energy recharge main or secondary artifact stats, and only charging Jean's ult from the energy acquired from performing Gale Blade, it took a total of 7 Gale Blades for the Black Sword and the Flute, and 5 Gale Blades for the Festering Desire. Since Jean is a healer, and her biggest healing comes from her burst, this is a critical stat. Jean's healing per burst for the 3 builds was smallest with the Black Sword and largest with the Flute. However, with the increased uptime on her burst using the Festering Desire, her healing potential from her burst alone is highest. If Jean is the only one on the field, it takes a total of 42 seconds to get her burst back with no energy recharge from weapon or artifact stats, and 30 seconds with only the energy recharge substat on the Festering Desire. Honestly, all 3 of the builds performed well, and the build you decide to use depends on what weapons you have available, as well as what you need the most from Jean's kit. If you're building Jean to deal a good amount of physical DPS as a sub-DPS unit, the Black Sword is the winner with the optimized crit rate to crit damage ratio. If you're building Jean to maximize uptime on her burst, plus the highest skill damage, the Festering Desire wins. And if you're building Jean as an all-arounder, the Flute is a great choice due to the high attack stat that Jean can accumulate from the weapon's secondary stat. Because I use Jean primarily for dealing damage with Gale Blade every 6 seconds, and for healing, the Festering Desire is the best weapon for me. I found that this is where Jean's kit really shines the most, but because she is so versatile, you can really optimize her kit to do whatever you want. That's all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, please consider subscribing down below. I put out a Genshin Impact video just like this one every single week. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.